avoided reading about it. I think I may have watched a trailer, but I didn't really pay much attention to it. It was the 50th anniversary, but then, you know, Die Another Day was for the 40th anniversary, and it made no difference in the end. And so I went to see Skyfall with a friend in November 2012. God, it feels age ago. And next thing you know, within seconds, there seems to be a half-decent film emerging. It looks good, personally, as a film. The cinematography is probably the best that's been in a Bond film for ages, if not for decades. And it's Spectre and the TV. There was something about the pre-title sequence that I immediately started to sink into, and you had the Bond theme back. You got some product placement, I suspect. Cat and Volkswagen. It's not as on the nose as Casino Royale's product placement, but it's there all the same. And next thing you know, Bond gets shot and falls off a bridge, and you think to yourself, shit. One way to start a film, and then you got that bit where M looks out the window of MI6, and you can hear the rain increase. It's a nice juxtaposition. What's going on over with Bond in a sun-drenched Istanbul and a rain-drenched London, and then you get the song. And I think personally, Skyfall as a song I quite like. The title sequence I quite like. I think it's the best of the Craig films outside of Casino Royale. And there's something about it that it's not really preaching the story to you. You know, Bond is presumed dead, he's facing his demons. And the lyrics for a Bond song are not too shabby. You know, the sky fell and take my hand and we'll do this stuff. And then we're mostly in London. We have a little bit of an adventure out to Macau, and that looks nice enough. But Light is the closest a Bond film's gotten to the premise of Moonraker, in the sense that Moonraker, the novel, was all set in England. And in fact, at that, it didn't venture that much past London into Kent. So, you know, I like seeing London on film at the best of times, and, you know, Skyfall does that. Craig, I'm still undecided on. He feels like a vacuum. You know, I mean, Timothy Dalton did it all first. He does it, he has his moments in it. The humour seems more natural compared to the previous two. It doesn't sound awkwardly delivered for the most part. You got things like the cufflink adjustments, and you think, well, you know, Pierce Brosnan did the tie adjust in GoldenEye, and the world is not enough. But Brosnan also knew how to wear a suit, and people, I'm not a Craig hater as such, but Craig doesn't seem comfortable in a suit. I can't explain it. You know, Sean Connery, he wore suits, but nothing as flash, I don't think, as what Brosnan and Craig have worn. Roger Moore always knew how to wear a suit because he was Brett Sinclair, and Simon Temple, he was basically playing himself in all three roles. Dawson, he wore tuxedos, but I don't think he ever wore, you know, a really smart suit. Or maybe they've just changed since the Dalton era. But Brosnan, you know, you look at how he was when he turns up in St. Petersburg and meets Jack Wade. Trying to think now. Pre-titles in World Is Not Enough. The casino scene. Die Another Day. In the Ice Palace, maybe? It's not a suit as such, is it? Craig wears suits, but they don't look right. Maybe it's the colour, maybe it's his build. M is quite good in the film. Judi Dench seemed to have just reconnected with things in the Craig films, and Skyfall was a fine epitaph. It would have been if she didn't do a bloody cameo in Skyfall, Spectre. Silver is Craig's most outlandish villain yet. You know, we're exclusive because I'm basing it on, you know, I'm treating this film as if it came out now. He's cartoonish, he's Fleming-esque, and I'm sort of wondering to myself, is Silver meant to be Spanish? Now, obviously, Javier Bardem is, but, you know, other actors have been, like Vesper's British, but played by a French woman in Casino Royale, and Olga Kurylenko, she's Russian, or Czech, I forget now, but she's playing a Spanish native, you know, Mexican or whatever. And Silver is played by a Spanish actor, but an MI6 agent. And in theory, if you're MI6, you're British. So maybe he's from Gibraltar or Falklands or something, I don't know. He's not a bad villain. He's not the best. He's not a top 10 Bond villain in my humblest opinion. But you've got Oscar. I think he won an Oscar, didn't he, for No Country for Old Men? And you've got Oscar-winning director as well, and the whole film just sort of clicks. You know, it's not the best Bond film, but it's one of the better films of late. I give it a solid 8 out of 10. Bernice Molo. Very striking lady to look at as Severin. I mean, that shot of her in the window with the wind blowing, the shower scene and her death are all good points of this film. And her death is quietly shocking, but there's no time to dwell on it because Bond immediately lashes into defence mode, and next thing you know, the Royal Navy turn up. And then we're back home in Britain. And it moves quickly. Once M disappears, Silver breaks out of his X-Men / Austin Powers style cage, and Bond follows, and we're on to the underground, and it moves along at an incredible rate of knots. Now, somebody says there's 1,001 holes in Skyfall. Yeah, there is in any Bond film. And you have one of the most striking scenes in a Bond film, I think, when M starts to quote from Tennyson, and it juxtaposes with Silver turning up, Bond pelting down Whitehall at a rate of knots, and this music that Thomas Newman does. And in the cinema I had a shiver down my spine. I thought, for a Bond film this is quite profound, and yet maybe I'm overstating my case. And then it sags into this shootout, the increased shootout, and it's just the fact that Bond turns up and he's popping away, and he kicks the gun over to Moneypenny, she starts popping away, and then Mallory's joining in as well, and it's just like, it's kind of like we're standing up to you. And Silver's a idiot. I mean, anyone else wouldn't have hesitated to shoot M, but clearly there was a moment. And there was something about Mallory when I saw it in the cinema, how he shoots a couple of times, and then he presses against the wall, and he's sort of looking. Now I guess he's looking at Bond, but there was something about Fiennes' eyes that made me think, well, you know, Mallory is meant to have surfed in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, so what if this, I thought, well, the way Skyfall's gone so far, Mallory's had some kind of like post-traumatic stress, he's had some kind of flashback to the Troubles, and he's gone into another world, but I guess just the way Fiennes was, you know. And then Bond's spirits M up north in the DB5, and it follows a route that many a film have done for many a year, and indeed in history, like the Alamo, Rio Bravo, Assault on Precinct 13, any episode of the A-Team. They entrenched themselves in Skyfall, Bond's ancestral home, and stand out. And you got Kincaid, played by the late great Sir Albert Finney, and Sir Albert Finney does his best. You're getting your money's worth with Sir Albert Finney. And I like the fact that M mixes it. I assume anyway, that, you know, she was an agent once upon a time. Right? She knew at least how to fire a gun. She might not have been a 00, but she did something back in the day. I mean, when I did my Bond stories where I was imagining Sam Neill as Bond, I had Maggie Smith as M, and I had a backstory for her for my Die Another Day version, where in the 50s she was a rookie agent responsible for getting British prisoner of wars back from North Korea, and it came back to bite her in the arse in, 30 years later or whatever. So there's that. I'm missing someone, aren't I? We got our first Q in a Bond film since Die Another Day. Ben Shaw is not too bad. He's quite young for the role, I think, but child prodigy and all that stuff. The locations are quite good. I mean, the underground I nitpick. I mean, Bond almost gets ran over and then jumps on two deep. He jumps away from one and or jumps on another tube train, and they're both deep line tube trains, and yet he's meant to be on the district line. Conversely, they use Charing Cross's disused Jubilee line platforms, which haven't seen passenger trains for 20 years. And yet he's on the district line, and it's what they call cut and cover. Google it, people. He jumps on at Temple, and it's got columns down either platform at Temple, and then he gets off at Embankment. How Silver knows when a tube train's coming in time to set off its explosives and all this bullshit, I don't know. It's one bit. The battle at Skyfall's quite good, and then M dies. Spoiler alert. It's done well. I think any other film would have come off a bit much. And at the end we get M's office, looking like the Robert Brown, Bernard Lee days. Are you ready to get back to work? Yes, says Bond. Yes, says me. That's 3 films of Bond having issues, Bond becoming a 00. The next film, let's not fuck about. Let's have the gun barrel at the start of the film, and let's get going, shall we? And on that note, we shall.